Hello, I'm Tyler Gatchone.
I'm Jack Nacetta.
And I'm Max Seifert.
And welcome to Polidics. Today's topic, Donald Trump, and why he's gotten so huge.
Is he a savior or a demigod? Today we find out.
Alright, well, this election we've obviously seen some unexpected things. Obviously Donald Trump, and then on the Democratic side you have a Mr. Bernie Sanders. But what is it about this year in particular? What are the global events? What is happening in the world, in America, that has created such a diverse landscape?
I think obviously to some extent it has to be displeasure with party politics and career politicians in general. Mm-hmm. That's why you see the success of people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in this kind of election.
On the Republican side in general, you have to just look at the anti-Obama sentiment that's kind of set in, because a lot of people didn't think he would win in 2012, and he was able to turn that around. And then there's the racial aspect as well, if you look at the Republican side, and Donald Trump's just playing to all those things, all those people who thought Obama's been screwing over the country these past years.
Yeah, I think a huge portion is probably the sort of secularized media and the clear division. You know, people aren't just listening to Fox News or reading the New York Times, at least in the past, I should say. But now it's definitely a division. It's definitely people get one input or another. And that definitely creates a dangerous precedent. One moment to pause as Jack Nacetta is shopping for online food.
Gotta stay hungry. Politics makes you hungry.
But it's a concerning landscape. It's a landscape of ignorance, I think. And it's definitely, you see these recurring themes. This has happened before. Say after the Clinton administration with the rise of a certain George W. Bush.
Well, can you say that George W. Bush won that election, really? If you counted all the votes in that election. Technically he didn't win.
Jeb
so
can
let's
fix
just
it, right,
stay
guys?
there.
Yeah, the only things I have to say about W would be that I too believe that humans and fish can coexist peacefully.
He's my senior quote, did you know that?
Well, is it really?
Yeah, they misunderestimated me.
They misunderestimated.
What about our enemies are smart and resourceful, and so are we. Our enemies are trying to kill Americans, and so are we.
Yeah. Look, I attended Yale University. I'm a very intelligent individual. I struggle with basic doors, basic necessities.
And I have, what's his wife's name? Martha? Right?
Barbara.
Barbara. I have Barbara open all the jars for me.
I've never brushed my teeth. I do not understand the rotary motion, so I must use an electric toothbrush.
No, to an extent, this is like, even George W., he was a 2-term president, and that's all branding.
Mm-hmm.
The left looks at him like he's an uneducated Neanderthal, which, there's...
It's not true. At Yale University, as previously stated.
No, but that's it. It's like the right will always point to the fact that he went to Yale, and then there was that snafu with John Kerry, right? Yeah. When John Kerry was running for president, and he demanded the SAT scores be released from George W., and it ended up being George W. had higher SAT scores.
No, I don't really have anything about W that concerned me that much. I think Mr. Cheney was definitely the driving factor in a lot of badness. And you know what, he was a likable man. And that's the difference from the current Republican candidates. W was a charmer.
Well, likable is like how you like that dog that runs into things a lot.
Like your goofy younger brother.
Yeah.
He wasn't presidential.
Not necessarily lovable, but likable.
The fact that he got to be president once is like, okay, that happens. The fact that he then, as an incumbent, continued on, other than the fact that the war was going, there wasn't, I think, a great basis for that. But that progression, I think, from him to President Obama, President Obama, even though he was a quote-unquote dark horse, he still was incredibly qualified. I think he was much better informed on the subject. But you just don't see that as much, I think, at least with the front runners. Bernie Sanders has been in Congress for a very long time, but, Donald Trump.
Well, Donald Trump just plays on hate. he wins an election simply using hate. I was on Twitter this afternoon and I was scrolling through and someone retweeted something by Fox, and it was the start of their program today. And it was just this lady literally railing for 8 minutes. I unfortunately watched the whole thing about like against Mitt Romney and like how he was just trying to like screw over. He was part of the establishment. He's part of Clinton's thing. When Mitt Romney didn't have the right policies for America, but he certainly was qualified. Well, I mean, he was experienced, but
qualified, definitely an understatement.
Yeah. Compared to Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
But he certainly had more intelligent things to say than Donald Trump. But this lady just hated. She hated Obama. She hated Mitt Romney. She hated anyone who basically didn't support Donald Trump.
Have you seen the video of when Trump endorsed Romney?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Romney had nothing but the highest praises for Trump. Nothing but the highest praises.
Yeah, he backstabbed. He doesn't have any loyalty. He's just a horrible person.
Trump or Romney?
I would say. I mean, both actually.
Well, yeah. My biggest problem with Mitt, honestly, a lot of people talk about, oh well, you know, he's flip flop, blah blah blah. Obviously, that was a problem, but the man put his dog on top of his car on a road trip. That's just messed up.
Oh, the binder's full of women thing didn't help either.
Yeah,
but I mean, you want to talk about people that flip flop. Every politician in the last 40 years has flip flopped on something.
Listen, the thing about politicians is, it is a career, and that's a conversation for another day. Especially not having a limit on congressional terms, but you can't. If it makes it a career, I can't just openly look down on somebody for doing their job and then continuing to do the things that will keep them in their position.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to a certain extent, society changes too.
Yeah.
As a movement becomes more popular, maybe you give it more thought, and that changes your mind.
Listen, Hillary Clinton, she spoke out against gay marriage.
So did Obama.
And then things change, and people can become enlightened, first of all, but even more importantly, if the American people, I have almost more respect if you change your opinion to fit with what the American people want as a majority. I think that's a definite important thing. But Mitt Romney's speech, any takes on that?
Well, it was the smart political move. I mean,
for sure.
Distancing yourself from someone like Trump is always a smart political move.
Unlike Chris Christie, who for some reason
did you guys see that video? Man, did he look like he regretted that?
And then there was a live mic thing where Donald Trump was heard saying, "Chris Christie, get on the plane and go home." So like he's pretty much he's been whipped by Donald Trump at this point. It's an unfortunate circumstance. He's begging for like the AG's job and like Trump administration.
His career's done, I think.
Christie?
He had a great thing going for him as a bit of a moderate.
He was that straight talker. He said it like it was. Well,
he had definite close ties to President Obama.
He was a moderate until this race.
Yeah,
and it would have been interesting to see how well he had done if he had stayed more down the middle.
It would be. I would have loved to see this race without Trump. I think that would have been
without
a very
Trump,
different
Cruz, and
climate.
Carson.
Then you'd see Jeb Bush as the nominee.
Even Cruz and
Scott
Carson.
Walker.
Do you guys remember when Jeb Bush announced his campaign? They were saying give it to Bush and Hillary.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in anybody's mind that it was going to be another Bush versus another Clinton.
Well, Jeb always to me seemed like it was, come on, Jeb, be like the rest of us. Come on, you want this?
Well, wasn't Jeb going to run in 2000? And then his brother kind of usurped him.
Oh, I have not heard that, but I believe it.
That might have happened.
As a successful governor, yeah, that dynamic has always been weird. I can't say I'm unhappy to not see another Bush. Emphasis on the not see another Bush.
I mean, I remember this whole race has just been turned upside down because there was Scott Walker, who dropped out over a year ago now, was supposed to be the prime candidate. Chris Hayes on MSNBC did this thing with like fantasy delegates and stuff and people picking candidates, and like this person got Scott Walker and they were flipping out about how good of a pick it was that they had, and they had it locked up the win for this fantasy candidate. They get proved wrong in the end.
It's already been a year since Scott Walker dropped
out. A little less, but it's been a long time.
Yeah,
that is incredible.
It's definitely interesting to see the Republicans, and something that I haven't really put much thought towards, but why is it that they continue to have so many candidates, do you think?
I think it has to be, to some extent, a displeasure within the Republican Party. I mean, that's why you see candidates like, I mean, Carson dropped out, but candidates like Carson and Trump be so successful is because they're non-career politicians. And I think the reason the others are hanging on is probably just some effort to steal votes from Trump and get someone else in.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at the Democratic Party, and they have pretty much... I mean, there's differences Bernie and Hillary, but they're not massive. Like, some people in the Republican Party are just complete... Like, they had two different parties, almost. There's the social conservatives, the fiscal conservatives, and to try and win elections, they bring them together. But in this day and age, it's becoming just not possible anymore.
Yeah. I predict a Republican split. I think it's radicalized too far. And you've seen this before in American history, obviously, the Whigs splitting, and then the Whigs withered off and the Republicans continued. And it's tough because when you have to go that far to the right to get the nomination...
And then you can't come back, and then all the moderates are forced to go left.
You can only run out to a certain point to where you don't have enough time to get back to the middle. But race has become a definite interesting thing in this election, too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, though, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-black, if you want to go back to Obama, but yeah.
If you want to go back to Obama, if you want to go back to probably something Trump said yesterday.
Yeah, that's true.
It brings it back around to the whole demagogue thing, because it's so easy for somebody like Trump to find a problem and then put the blame on someone else. And it's been done before. People bring up Hitler a lot, and that is true. Obviously, that was Hitler's main strategy. And if you go in and read, his January 19th, 1939 speech, it's pretty much word for word with a Trump speech, which is concerning. Not even that the ideas are mirrored, but in fact that the ideas... And just even the format are so close is terrifying.
Well, I assume both of you guys watched The Daily Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you guys see what Trevor Noah did with Trump and Benito Mussolini?
Oh, no. Yeah, that's great.
Trump legitimately tweeted a Benito Mussolini tweet or a quote, and then he Benito Mussolini's Twitter account, but and he retweeted a Mussolini quote, and then when given the chance to defend himself by endorsing fascism, he did not step down.
Yeah.
Oh God! Well, he was asked about Putin, and the interviewer was saying, this is a man that kills journalists, that kills the freedom of speech and violates all these rights. How can you say anything good about him? And Trump just said, well, he's a leader. He knows how to run his country.
It's shocking how similar they are.
Yeah. Well, I saw a neurochemical analysis of their brains, and they're pretty much the same person. They're both incredibly driven by testosterone. In some aspects, that's not necessarily a bad thing for a leader to be similar to another leader, but in the event, and I would say probably the inevitable event that they both get so bullheaded that they clash on something, then you don't really have any chance of resolving with that type of personality.
What do you guys think about the hypermasculinity from Trump?
It's an interesting strategy with the electorate being increasingly made up of women.
Compensation.
So that it's
small hands.
It's an interesting strategy. Whoever told them to follow, because it'll win you in the Republican Party, but seeing how Democrats win every time because of the women's vote, it's not a great strategy for winning the general election.
Well, there's the most interesting thing I think about this race is he does definitely seem like a massive threat. But I think he's more so a threat to the Republican establishment than he is to say, a Democratic candidate.
I don't think he's a legitimate threat in the election. Granted, we've been saying that for months.
It seems disproportionate because obviously you don't really have the direct numbers comparing to each other until you have the general election. I think once we reach that point, I hope once we reach that point.
I mean, early polling, he's down by 30 in the swing state of Michigan to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So that's
Massive.
massive.
They'll win a state, but he will be considerably behind her.
Yeah.
There was a poll on either the New York Times or CNN in the past week, and it was a poll that pitted Bernie versus Trump and then Hillary versus Trump, and Trump lost both times.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a surprising outcome, considering both the New York Times and CNN tend to lean left in viewership. But I don't know. I hope it's indicative of what ends up happening.
The only threat, I'd say, the only legitimate chance the Democrats have of losing, and I hope I don't eat these words, but is Rubio, because he usually pulls even or above Clinton and Sanders because he's the young, mixed race, that energized candidate. I mean, I don't think he is really energized. I don't think he is a great candidate, but he appeals to young Republicans who are still a legitimate faction of the party, despite usually young people being classified as more liberal, and it's can get people out to vote. So, but apparently his campaign is completely folded. So I think we're okay.
Well, you would think there would be an immense amount of pressure on either Cruz or Rubio to, from the party, because there have been quite a few members of the Republican Party that have spoken out against Trump. You'd think there'd be an incredible amount of pressure on either Rubio or Cruz to fold up their campaign and hopefully swing some votes a different way.
Well, the problem for Cruz is that nobody likes him.
Yeah, I mean,
in his own
everyone
party
who works with him hates him. I read this story in Politico. It was a profile of how Cruz paints himself as the anti-establishment candidate, but really he tried to get a job as the establishment in 2000 in Bush, but literally everyone hated him, so they wouldn't get him a job. So, like, he would leave work at like 3. And then come back at 11 at night and send emails out to make it look like he worked from 3 to 11 at night. So literally just everyone hates him. They didn't give him a job in the establishment, so he got all mad about it and became this anti-establishment candidate. But he's just as bad as any... I mean, I'm not saying the establishment's bad. I think it's a good thing, actually, but he's part of the establishment.
Yeah, one of the better things Trump has said this election was he pointed him out, and he said, you've had... Nobody has stood up from the Republican Party, from your own party, and supported you. And so for somebody that is a senator that should have at least somebody stand up, nobody wants to support him because he's a disagreeable, and frankly, that's not what you want going into, a presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it would seem as though most of the Republican candidates are disagreeable, or at the very least polarizing. I mean, look at Donald Trump. It's really you either love him or you hate him. No one's like, I'm considering Rubio or Trump. Like,
it's like, yeah, I kind of like Trump, but golly, that racism.
I heard Iowans before the Iowa caucus saying it's between Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump for my vote. I'm like, that's an odd.
That's I checked the news one time and I know 2 names. Yeah. That's not an informed decision.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. When this all started, I saw Donald Trump. And I thought, oh, he raises interesting ideas. He has some good ideas, and there's some bad ideas. But you know what? Those will never pass through. And then it was, all Mexicans are rapists. And I went, yeah, at least nobody will pay attention to that. And then we're not letting any Muslims into the country.
No, did you see the screening process for that, though? It was like, once they get here, it's going to be, are you Muslim? And if they say yes, we send them home.
Yeah, that's a problem. The database idea, it's tough because we're fighting a war right now that is unlike any other war because there's only one defining characteristic. And so obviously there will be a conversation about how we identify potential terrorists because you now have more people joining ISIS or ISIL or IS from the United States and from France and from Britain,
Canada too,
than you do from Syria. So
there was quite a few Canadians, wasn't there, that defected recently.
When you have only that one defining characteristic, it's they're Islamic extremists. It's tough. You can't really go, well, they're Middle Eastern. No, it doesn't. You can't do that anymore. And there's so many countries in the Middle East that ends up running even more dangerously racist than just saying, they're Muslim.
Well, it's interesting to see the parallel between like the Islamic extremists and the Christian extremists. Like the Planned Parenthood shooting, that was Christian extremism.
Yeah.
And people, oddly enough, I mean, not oddly enough, because you kind of expected it but hoped it wouldn't happen, was on Fox and some other right-wing media outlets, they were commending this guy. which is atrocious.
That's concerning.
Yeah, but I mean, this wasn't something that was like, all right, let's move past this. Let's like hush this up and sweep it under the rug. Maybe people will forget Christians are bad people too. It was like, no, this guy did a good thing. Like, Planned Parenthood is evil. They sell baby parts to, like. And speaking of, I can't believe that video picked up as much steam as it did.
Well, the guys who made the video were the ones who got arrested in the end. They were indicted by the grand jury was brought to indict Planned Parenthood executives, but in the end they found that people who made the video were the ones who were acting illegally. So that kind of turned on them in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah,
People still believe that video is real, though.
Yeah. I mean,
the interesting thing about this election is normally you hear the same players come out, and you have the pro-life, pro-choice, and the Republican side. I don't think anything real has really been talked about that much. There's been some military stuff, but your usual abortion, no abortion, it can't really break through.
Well, it's
just the sheer argument.
Whenever they bring up Planned Parenthood, it's like there was the one debate, and it was like Chris Christie. It was his turn to speak, and he was asked about Planned Parenthood, and he was like, "I'm pretty sure everyone on this stage would defund Planned Parenthood," and the crowd went wild. Like, it's not really a conversation piece because everyone's on the same page.
Well, Donald Trump did say that he thinks Planned Parenthood is doing great work, quote unquote.
But then he also turned on it.
Yeah, then they were like, but no, I'm still defunding them because of abortion, even though he was pro-choice until like a month ago.
Yeah.
So
pro-choice until he watched Fox News and found out.
Oh, Republicans aren't pro-choice.
Oh, that part confused me.
I'd like to see a visual representation of just things he said.
I thought you were gonna say abortion.
Oh dear. No, like the things Donald Trump has said in the last 68 years, and then things he said in the last year, and see where that falls on the political spectrum. Because I think
I mean, he was a Democrat.
Yeah,
he was a liberal.
And then he did an interview in the 90s. It was on Oprah. I saw it. It was like, and he was giving some economically. He was talking kind of right wing, and he was talking about how he might run for president. And it wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't agree with his economic ideas, but he sounded reasonable. They seemed well researched. But now he's like, no one listens to that anymore, and he is a great politician. Like, he knows how to play to the people better than any politician in the race right now. He's played it so smartly. The advisors didn't see it coming, but he knew. In 2013, he had a meeting with top Republican leaders from New York, and they're like, "You're going to run for governor?" He's like, "No, I'm going to run for president, and I'm going to do it by not playing retail politics. I'm going to give the big speeches. I'm just going to say insane things." They're like, "That's not going to work. That's not going to work." And he's like, "Yes, it will." And it did. So he proved them wrong.
I wonder if he's doing it. I mean, I'm sure part of him believes some of the stuff, but I wonder if it is all...
That's... For a long time, I thought, well, yeah, he's just got to be playing the crowd. But now, I think he believes things he says as he says them.
I wonder if it's a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, though. Like, he hears it a second time on the news, and he's like, I believe that now.
He's like, I am locked into this now.
There's supposedly some tape recording of him with the New York Times editor saying he doesn't actually believe in his immigration plan, which would be great to hear.
But it won't get released.
No,
which is
it was all accurate.
Yeah, for someone that's so outspoken, he likes to bury quite a few things. Yeah,
you know what's interesting though is that guy from the KKK who told what's his name?
David Duke.
David Duke. He told the KKK members to vote Trump, and then Trump ended up saying, like, votes are votes. And then there was the video from, it must have been 2005, 2006-ish, where he openly denounced David Duke.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't know who David Duke is.
And he's like, I've never heard that name before in my life.
Wink. Yeah, it's...
And he was like, it's my earpiece. I couldn't hear it well. I was like, no, it was not. Because, like, people watch that clip on CNN, and then they're like, oh, yeah, he supports the KKK, and I support the KKK. But then, like, other people who actually are informed, who might vote for Trump in the end, but are somewhat informed, are like, no, he denounced in the end. So he gets both sides of, like, the pie.
It's...
Including the KKK.
Which is not that sizable, but maybe in the Republican Party.
You know what? It's a slice of the pie, man. It's a slice of the pie.
An interesting effect, and Bernie Sanders is doing this, even though he most likely will not get the nomination now. He pulls people out to vote. And that's important. So Bernie supporters, they're going to come and they're going to vote for Hillary. It's introducing people to the process. I think it was, out of the people that voted for him on Super Tuesday, 17% were first-time voters, which is substantial.
That's a big deal.
But Trump does the same thing. So someone from an extremist group, from a white extremist group, they're not normally voting. They're so against the establishment. They don't want to be any part of the process even. And now they're coming out and voting. So it's an interesting effect. I think this will be a record turnout, at least to some degree. Either people will get so discouraged and not come out at all, or you'll have a lot of people from a pretty massive spread of demographics coming out.
That is definitely an interesting point. People are definitely more excited about this election than I remember. I mean, granted, I was nowhere near voting age during the last election, but I don't remember people being this excited about the election. It might be the polarizing nature of the candidates and people are taking up arms in their camp, and maybe that's what's doing it. But I feel like there's also some kind of genuine excitement over the candidates. Not necessarily just, I hate that guy, so I'm on this side. Even if it is just the Tumblr generation and I want to go to college for free, so I'm voting for Bernie Sanders.
I mean, you see the excitement for some of the Republicans. Like, people are really excited about Marco Rubio, and you start to see it for Bernie Sanders, but...
And Trump, too.
And Trump, unfortunately. But Hillary Clinton's been lacking to some degree. I mean, it's not covered in the media. She certainly has excitement around her campaign. Every political campaign, if you look at a rally, has excitement. But it's nowhere near the level Bernie has. And I only hope once Bernie drops out and endorses her after the convention, she'll be able to take the Bernie supporters and then using the Obama model of 2008, which was revolutionary, and it brought so many new voters out. And she has one of Obama's chief people, David Plouffe, I believe, was the one who moved over to her campaign and is using that model. She'll be able to, even if there isn't real excitement, she'll be able to generate it using the new voter engagement models that he developed in 2008 and be able to even top Trump's excitement in a general election, hopefully.
Well, even then, it would be shocking to see Bernie supporters go anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean,
because Bernie is so far left.
Yeah. But it's whether they come out at all.
Well, but I would assume they would come out because they're already excited about the election. You know, if you like Bernie Sanders, you love Bernie Sanders.
I think Hillary's biggest problem though was she has had a definite, clear following. But Bernie has such a vice grip on the youth and on the young vote. And normally the young vote is just sort of, they cast it off the side. No one's going to come out. Nobody's going to come out and vote in the 18 to 22 range. Because it's true. People don't normally come out to vote. They don't feel like they have any effect on the election. But clearly there is a distinct effect that I think both sides now have to look at. But Hillary and her social media was so bad.
It's very badly.
It's very poorly... They need some kind of campaign shake-up.
Cedar Rapids.
She's had a couple funny things that she's tweeted recently. They must have gotten someone new, but I just remember when 8 reasons why Hillary Clinton is like your abuela.
Yeah, I saw that. She's trying to do like the corniest lines.
I didn't think it was real.
No. She's trying to get the BuzzFeed video. Yeah.
She's a presidential candidate, not like some pop culture icon. Like Bernie does it. Like
Hillary Clinton.
People do it for Bernie, so it's funny. But like Hillary Clinton tries to do it for herself.
I don't think Bernie Sanders
work.
knows what Twitter is. If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. He's hip with the lingo.
I remember #debate with Bernie, where like there'd be that video of him sitting on the sofa and like someone would be tweeting for him, and like he'd just say things off the cuff and he'd tweet it. Like of like the Republicans, he's like, oh, they don't talk about climate change. He'd be like tweeting, everybody be like, yeah, retweet.
He has 2 accounts or 2 or 3 official verified
like
accounts.
Senator Sanders, at Bernie Sanders, which is the campaign one, and there's another one.
I'll be honest, I love my follower-following ratio. But I follow, I think, all of his accounts, even though they tweet the same thing. I just want to be part of it.
But all they tweet is, we're not bought by corporations. Unfortunately, there was, right before I got here...
Part of the movement.
I was looking at Twitter, and it was Bernie Sanders was getting an endorsement, and then I saw from a Hillary Clinton supporter...
speaking of, Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to win the Maine caucuses, as of right now. Yeah.
Well, he won what, 3 last night?
Yeah, but Hillary Clinton ended up with more delegates. No, it was 2. I think he won 2. Hillary Clinton won 1, and he ended up with more. I mean, she ended up with more delegates.
Okay,
she had a bigger winning rate.
Speaking of delegates, so the super delegates, that's something.
I mean, that's party rules, and she did it. She was able to get them early, and because no one thought any serious challenger would enter. So like, if we enter early, Hillary Clinton will be able to reward us with party favors later. So everyone endorsed Hillary, and then like, wow, there's a serious challenge now, but they've already endorsed Hillary. So
Yeah, I read a really interesting thing though, saying the delegates are actually starting to get alienated by Bernie's support base because people are just emailing delegates and emailing them like crazy, but so ferociously that they now back away. They're like, I don't know if I want to be part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when people like Bernie Sanders, they love Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I always see like tweets and like superdelegates have corrupted the Democratic Party. It's rigged, like protest but I mean,
if Bernie Sanders tweeted "Drink the Kool-Aid," how many people do you think would drink the Kool-Aid?
I think superdelegates. I mean, it's crazy.
Dreaded white 18-year-olds everywhere, dead in the streets,
just in droves. Half of Fitch would be gone.
Yeah, it's just so. This is such a weird one.
It is.
It's interesting, though.
Can we talk about something for a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Young female Trump supporters.
That is something I do not understand.
I thought they were a myth until.
Well, you know, he's getting
fun of him.
He's getting a large percentage of the deafblind vote.
Name recognition.
Young female being, say, a Miss Keller, perhaps. Yeah, it's. I don't know how you can do it. Maybe it's for the same reason that some girls date bad boys.
Oh God.
They're like this southern like, oh, you're not gonna you pry my gun out of my cold dead hands. My
this is
pink
just like
pistol
Daddy.
I got for the range. Like
my pink rhinestone pistol is staying with me, Barack.
Impeach
Honestly,
Obama
it's
2016.
Oh God.
Or what about the bumper, like, or the countdowns people have on their Twitter account? It's like, so many days until Obama leaves office, best day of, and then
Hillary Clinton takes it. Yeah.
I would be happy if he could stay in.
Obama? I think a third Obama term. I'd be fine with that.
That's my ideal.
No, this is the ideal scenario. Hillary Clinton wins. Obama is appointed to the Supreme Court.
Oh,
there it
God,
is.
that'd be perfect.
There it is.
Oh,
he was editor of the Harvard Law Review. He is eminently qualified. There's an open seat, and I assume there will be for some time to come at this rate.
I like that.
It'll be over a year, right? Until we get our Supreme Court justice.
Unfortunately, he said he has no interest in it.
I don't.
But that's classic political talk.
Yeah, just like
He's gonna
Hillary
go for
Clinton
it.
had no interest in the White House. I've had bad experiences there. My husband slept with that woman.
I did not do that.
That depends on what your definition of is.
I remember that whole argument.
I did her. I did not do that. Yeah, it's interesting how quiet Monica's been.
Monica Lewinsky.
Didn't she join like an anti-Hillary super PAC or something?
I wouldn't be shocked.
That would be hilarious.
No, it's I don't know if do you guys watch TED Talks? I assume so.
Yeah, she had a TED Talk.
She did, and I was not a fan.
What did she say? I didn't see it.
She called herself, I believe, patient zero of bullying. Cyberbullying.
It was an interesting point. She talked herself up a lot more, I think, than she had credibility to do.
I mean, all she did was have an affair with the president, which doesn't make you qualify.
Well,
it just makes you an unfortunate scenario.
She was very much so barraged.
And you know what? You would think as president of the United States, Bill Clinton could have done better, but I guess it's probably a topic for another day.
It was around. She had interesting points. I wouldn't necessarily discredit everything she said.
Oh, absolutely not, no. She just had an interesting way of going about it.
The most unfortunate thing for her, more than anything else, more than the media being on the power rise at that moment, you have OJ not long before, and then so obviously that sort of 24/7 coverage was being piloted. But to have a name that fits so well in rap songs is really tough.
Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, man.
I mean... What did she go on to do? She's kind of quietly retired to like Florida or whatever, right?
And faded away.
I don't know what she does.
Did she get any money?
No, she definitely didn't. I mean, she could have under the table.
I'll bet she got money under the table, but I'll bet she makes a killing doing public speaking and stuff. True.
Just like Hillary Clinton, $437,000.
Dude, people got so up in arms about that, but the thing is, would you have taken that money?
Yeah,
because I would have, and I'll bet Bernie would have too.
She was qualified to make the speech. Why not do it?
If someone's gonna pay you that much, that's good capitalism. I don't mind. You know what? That's the most irritating thing, is just as much as I think the right has become polarized, the left has done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. They won't allow like any little deviation from their like purism. It just slice your head off.
I love someone like Bloomberg, for that sort of socially liberal, fiscally conservative, because to regain our position. We have not necessarily slipped. A lot of people like to pull up, oh, well, China's ahead of us. If we stopped right now, China would have 25 years to catch up, because they have incredible coastal infrastructure, but the whole interior of the country needs some serious work.
Plus they're, going back to the space race, they put a probe on the moon and then it froze immediately, so they still technically haven't successfully kept it there.
Well, I'll save this, I think, perhaps for the next one. We'll chat a little bit about the commercialized space flight, because I think that warrants a whole conversation within itself. But people look at that and they go, well, we haven't put anything on the moon. Yeah, but Google launches things to the moon now.
Yeah.
So the corporate America, I think, has reached power. Somewhat even more than the government, one might argue.
Well, I mean, look at... what's his name? Elon Musk. Elon Musk is about to fly himself to the moon.
I love that man.
I'll save it for another day.
We'll save it. You know what? We're bouncing right at the 36-minute mark. So.
Well, it was a good talk.
Yeah.
Good talk. Summary of the topic: Donald Trump built his campaign off hate. That's what I have to say.
Max,
what's your summary?
Final words?
Oh, geez, Trump 2016.
Look, there's a lot of people that want to listen to podcasts. I know you're all probably liberal. Unless you're not, all I have to say is, you're losers. I hate you. Trump 2016. Duh.
That's the best
Winning.
way to get votes. Insulting the people, and they're like, I think I'm going to vote for that guy.
All right, live from Tyler's basement, this has been Polidics.
Thank you.